My name is Jason, and this is Just Watches. Okay, today we have a watch that captured my attention the first time I saw it on the Seiko Lux website. This is the SPB187, which is a slimmed down version of the Marine Master 300, a watch I have always admired but felt was too big. I'm happy to report this version feels right at home on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. Now, before we get to the review, if you're enjoying the contents of this channel, I invite you to subscribe, and if you're enjoying the contents of this individual video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much. So for price and availability, this watch is available from many retailers and has an MSRP of $1,200. However, you can get them for considerably less used, and I'll talk about that more later. So the case is 42mm in diameter. It's 48.5mm lug to lug, but these solid end links do extend past the ends of the case, so it's more like a 51mm lug to lug. It's about 13mm thick and then has a 20mm lug width opening. Sized for my 6 3/4 inch wrist, it weighs in at 167 grams. Now, a big reason I was attracted to this watch is this super interesting case shape. The brushed top of the case transitions into this massive Grand Seiko-esque polished shoulder down the edge of the case before transitioning back into a flat brush side and finally sloping back towards the case back again in high polish. And then the drilled lugs have an aggressive angle and are also pointed at the end. So complete with this 4 o'clock crown, the case has a ton of character and wrist presence. The case and bracelet are treated with dye shield coating, which helps prevent scratches, and I can report that this coating does seem to work. For the bracelet, I'm not a huge fan of these modern Seiko ones, but this one feels slightly more cohesive with the watch than the one that came on the SPB213 that I reviewed, which just didn't feel like it matched the head of the watch at all. So this bracelet starts at 20mm before tapering down to 18mm at the clasp. The solid end links have a touch of play, and as I mentioned before, extend past the ends of the watch, which does add to the overall lug to lug. Now, the articulation of the bracelet across the back of the watch and between the links is quite poor, which usually translates into a less comfortable bracelet overall, but by some magic of Seiko design, the bracelet really works well on this watch. The outer links are rounded, while the inner links are angular with brush tops and polished facets. To me, this design feels cohesive with the broad curve of the case against those angular lugs. The clasp is 20mm, and with this massive diver's extension is quite long. The signed safety catch feels a bit thin, but the rest of the clasp is robust with a fully milled scissor. There are 4 micro positions. I think this clasp would be greatly improved by ditching this diver's extension, but as this is an ISO certified dive watch, I understand why it is included. Finally, sizing is accomplished with the dreaded Seiko pin and collar system, but check out the video I did on that system to help you navigate sizing it if you need help. The screw-in case back has the familiar Seiko wave and helps provide that 200 meters of water resistance. Now, this watch is powered by the newer 6R35, which is a hacking, hand-winding 21,600 vibration per hour automatic movement with an upgraded 70-hour power reserve and a stated accuracy of -15 to +25 seconds a day. It also features a quick set date. Now, while I was sort of skeptical about the longer power reserve being useful, I'm often delighted to find this one still running in the watch box a few days after I take it off, which occasionally makes the decision for which watch I will wear for that day if I am feeling lazy. However, the accuracy on this one is terrible. As you can see, it's running at +27 seconds a day, which is out of the specifications. The amplitude is also quite low. And then with the crown up, it drops all the way down to about 0 to +4 seconds a day. So Seiko continues to have these glaring QC issues, including at this 4-figure price point. The 6.5mm screw-down crown resides at 4 o'clock. It is sadly unsigned, something Seiko seems to have stopped doing even at this 4-figure price point. The threading and unthreading action is quite smooth though, something that I don't always find on Seiko divers. Overall, it's easy to wind and operate the watch via this crown. The sapphire crystal is flat and flush with the bezel and treated with anti-reflective coating. There is a facet around the edge that catches light from an angle. I think a flat crystal was the right choice here as it helps keep the watch thinner overall. The 120 click unidirectional bezel has a thick coin style edge. The action is very Seiko-esque but feels slightly more refined. It is very easy to turn, maybe even a bit squishy, but it is also super clicky and tactile as well. Now the insert is interesting. It has a glossy ceramic look, but it's apparently steel that is then coated with titanium black carbon. Now, I don't think it's as tough as ceramic, as mine has picked up a few tiny marks over time, but it's very rich and shiny black and looks great in person. Now, the alignment on mine is quite good, but only because I bought this one secondhand and specifically sought one out with decent alignment. The dial is a deep grayish blue with a sunburst effect. Now, it will really change colors depending on the lighting from blue to almost black. There is no chapter ring, rather there are minute markings at the very edge of the dial with larger ones for the hour positions. The indices are applied, edged in high polish, and filled with lume. You have the double marker at 12 with large rectangles at 6 and 9 and circles for the remaining hours. The dreaded ISO certification required half lume plot sits next to the date at 3, and as ghastly as it is when you stare at it, I have found in practice you almost never notice it. We have Seiko at 12, and then the Prospex X automatic and divers 200 meter at 6 with additional information printed super small all the way from 5 to 7. The date window is very lazy. It's an unbeveled hole they just cut into the dial. Now, overall, I actually do like this dial, especially the dial color and the way it looks contrasted against that super glossy black of the bezel insert. The handset on these modern Seiko divers are gorgeous. They're gabled down the center, and then one side uses a polish finish and the other side uses a brushed finish. This makes them both super visually interesting and also greatly improves the overall legibility of the watch. The minute hand is super long here, reaching all the way to the dashes at the end of the dial, as does the second hand, which uses the Seiko stoplight at the tip with a splash of lume and red. I love that they used a more true Marine Master handset on this version, rather than the one on the previous version, which used that giant arrow for the hour hand. And this being a Seiko, there's absolutely no question, the lume is awesome, super bright and super responsive. And here it is on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. Now, they really nailed this one with the reduced size. I think it wears great. And then as you can see, it also hugs the wrist and is quite thin overall despite having a lot of wrist presence. So pros and cons, starting with the pros. Well, I love the style of this Marine Master case. The finishing is excellent, and it's finally available for smaller wrist sizes in this reduced size. Second, the bezel insert is gorgeous. I love this glossy black, and even though it's not ceramic, it seems like it's going to hold up over time. And then finally, the hand finishing is excellent on these new Seiko divers. You really almost have to see them in person to fully appreciate just how nice they are. As for cons, I have a few minor nitpicks. The date window finishing is quite lazy. It's basically just a hole in the dial, and then the unsigned crown does sort of bother me, but the elephant in the room is quality control. As you saw from the time grapher, the movement is just not performing within specifications, and then you are really lucky to get a bezel that's aligned. I don't know if Seiko is going to do anything about these QC issues. I know these watches sell well despite this, but it really bothers me, and I really wish they would clean up their QC, especially at this price point. So I talked about getting this one used, and I did pick this one up. I've noticed that these more modern Seiko divers, despite being $1,200 MSRP, can be found floating around $800 used. Now, I got this one for even less than that, and it was basically brand new. I got a great deal, and I think that is more what you should be paying for these watches. And then if you can get them to show you good pictures of the bezel and put it on a time grapher, you could rule out the Seiko QC issues, and then you are getting a good deal. Now, as for comparables, if you don't want to go with this Seiko, I always recommend Steinhardt at this price point, anywhere north of $400. I think the value there can't be beat. And then for even a little less than this MSRP, you could get a Christopher Ward diver. I think the quality on the Christopher Ward is even slightly better than on these modern Seikos. And then you do have that Swiss movement. My Christopher Ward is deadly accurate. And then for a little bit more, I haven't actually handled one, but I hear great things about the Oris Aquis. I think that's kind of competing in this price point, and I do want to get one of those on the channel to review soon. So there you have it, the Seiko SPB187, aka the Marine Master Reduced. What do you think about this watch and the modern Seikos in general? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, if you're enjoying the contents of this channel, I invite you to subscribe, and if you like the contents of this individual video, please give it a thumbs up. That's all for this time. My name is Jason, and you have been watching Just Watches.